Dear brothers and sisters, Black Power has always given honor to the Creator, given honor to the ancestors, my father, my in-laws, my sister, Chief of Staff Brother Harris Abdul, and all the ancestors. This is a special video today, and as you can hear, about the sister, the great queen, Aretha Franklin, is about to make her transition to the ancestral realm. And basically, Aretha was so strong and powerful, she could basically eulogize herself, as we know, as we can hear. She was the greatest voice in music recording history. Let me repeat that. She had the greatest music voice in music recording history. And so many of our other great queens who came behind her and tried to emulate her, the thousands and thousands of queens, the great singers, our great black female singers who patterned themselves after Aretha, from Patti LaBelle all the way to Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Jennifer Hudson, Shaka Khan. The list goes on and on and on. But as we talk about Aretha today, you know, it's going to be, everything is not going to be peaches and cream, because the queen has some very, 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 very terrible times and situations and traumatizing events that took place in her life and her existence here. And the way she dealt with them, the way she overcame a lot of things, and by her being an Aries, she was a very, very outspoken sister. She spoke and revealed whatever was on her mind, regardless of the consequences. That's how she was. She was a very, very stand-up goddess. But the things that she went through, you may find unbelievable, you know, but it's nothing new under the sun when it comes to dealing with human behavior. So let's go and let's just talk about the queen herself. You know, March 25th, 1944. She came to the earth. She was blessed from the time she was able to talk and sing up until now, her way into the ancestors. She sung in the church half of her life. She grew up in the church with her father, the late C.L. Franklin. And one thing I must say about this brother, one thing I can have to say about C.L. Franklin, he was a real, real dirty nigga. Real dirty nigga. And he done some real crutball shit to his daughters and to his wife. Now, C.L. Franklin was a dirty motherfucking nigga. You know, I'm gonna let the chips fall where they may. You know, in his church members used to gather on Sunday nights, and practically any night, basically, but primarily Sunday nights, and they had church, followed by a church revival, followed by an orgy. He had large orgies in which Aretha was exposed to these orgies. You know, as they were little girls, they were exposed. They looked up to their father, the Reverend C.L. Franklin. They looked up to him as though he were God himself. And in turn, he done all types of shit to them, particularly Aretha, which Aretha's mother knew what was going on and became very jealous of the relationship of Aretha and her father, which led ultimately to a divorce, a separation and divorce. But way before that, when Aretha was 14 years old, he got Aretha pregnant at 14 years old. And this was one of the reasons that Aretha's mother knew what was going on with her husband, the orgies, all the late night parties, and just disgusting, dirty, low down behavior. And C.L. Franklin had, he had money by him having a so-called, what would be considered a mega church back then. He had a large congregation that were willing to do anything he said. And so you had to understand what took place and how powerful of an influence this man had over his congregation. And the relationship caused separation between C.L. Franklin and Aretha's mother, and which turned Aretha was basically turned out because she never revealed until this day who was the father of her first child, C. Clarence Franklin, named after Aretha's father. And also she had another child right behind Clarence at age 16. And so those things turned Aretha out, and Aretha gradually went into secular music. But she wrestled with that most of her life. She loved the gospel music, but she didn't like what went down, what came with the gospel music, what came with the industry. The people were vile and nasty. And so she began to sing what we call soul music. And she is the queen of soul music because no one can do it better than Aretha Franklin. She is so great, she basically can eulogize herself. So she was very, very promiscuous in her young years, in her late teens and early 20s. She had a major crush on Sam Cooke, which she said she'd never been with Sam, but I believe different, Yeah, so Aretha Franklin, I had to take a break for a second, brothers and sisters, but let me get back on track. She went to secular music, and she became the queen of soul. Having all types of number one blockbuster hits. Hit after hit after hit after hit. And she did a lot of producing. mega tours, performances, TV appearances, and became one of the greatest of all time. But in her heart, she still loved the secular music. She still loved the gospel music. Excuse me. That was still in her heart. But once again, as I said before, you know, the by being turned out by her father and being impregnated by her father, she was very, very devastated behind that. And what made it the nasty things that she endured in the gospel world really messed her up. She was traumatized by it. And the nasty shit was that her father literally fell in love with her because he didn't like Glenn Turman. He didn't want nobody else with Aretha. He didn't want her to marry. He didn't really want her to date. Her father wanted her to himself, which was this dude was a nasty motherfucker, you know. And these things happen all the time in the black community, you know, where uncles pregnate their nieces and fathers pregnate their daughters, and this is a behavior and practice that came based from slavery, and you know, it was very, very devastating for Aretha because she was unable and refused and had to hide the truth from her two sons, in terms of who their father was. Now, both sons weren't conceived by C.L. Franklin. Only the first child was, Clarence. She married Glenn Turman. You know, if you don't know who he is, those my old heads who know he started his career at Cooley High playing Cooley High the movie. But most of you all know him from being a military professor in the Bill Cosby syndicated TV show A Different World. And he's played in numerous films, numerous TV shows. He married Aretha, and Aretha took his son in, Glenn Turman Jr. But also tragedy struck Glenn right after marrying Aretha. His son, Glenn Turman Jr., was brutally murdered in a bar. 21 years old. Here he is, to your left with the hat on. And sources said, along with the police report, stated that Turman Jr. and a friend of his were laughing at a woman. I believe the woman's friend, he approached them and just began stabbing both Turman and his friend. Turman died of multiple stab wounds, and his friend survived. But that really devastated Glenn Turman Sr. Really devastated him to the point where he indulged himself in alcoholism and drugs. But he managed to overcome that throughout the years. But it played a negative role in the marriage between him and Aretha. So after 9 years, they separated and divorced. But back to C.L. Franklin. This nigga marched with Dr. King, you know, outside of that demonic behavior and an uncontrollable urge to control his sexual organs. to the point where he was fucking his own daughter. He was a leader in the community. For those who didn't know of the secret lifestyle that C.L. Franklin had, the Reverend C.L. Franklin had, he was a stand-up guy in the black community. Once again, he was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge as well, and stood with Dr. King. But he couldn't get enough of his daughter. And people were very suspicious due to the fact that everywhere they saw Reverend C.L. Franklin, Aretha was by his side. But, like his wife. And it grew heavy suspicion. But no one actually confronted either one of them. Although Aretha was questioned about who was the father of her first son, and which she never revealed. And once again, Aretha played the role of her mother as the wife of her father. This is the type of behavior that took place then. And so when you hear Aretha talk her lyrics and her songs about being hurt, Ain't No Way, and all these other songs, you can kind of get an understanding of what and who she was talking about, of how hard it was to shake off traumatizing events, and how to deal with mass confusion, because she managed to deal with it and keep a smile on her face in the public. Reverend C.L. Franklin in the mid-'80s was brutally murdered also. It was a home invasion where he was shot twice in the chest at close range at his home. Police reports state that it appeared to be a robbery. But those who knew C.L. Franklin a little more closer than the law enforcement believed that it was behind the womanizing. That he slept with one woman too many and the wrong woman, and the husband or boyfriend of one of the women came and murdered him. And that's what other sources close to the family state, opposed to these cracker police reports that they just make up so they won't have to do any work in terms of investigation, because you know why. But this is the funeral of Reverend C.L. Franklin. But Aretha managed to keep singing. At inaugurations, she managed to always sing at numerous Grammy Award, different types of award shows, personal family funerals and weddings and so on and so on. She was a very, very powerful woman. And I'm not going to display any photos of her when she had the massive weight gain, and when she had the massive weight loss, and when she was beginning to be in her early stages of cancer. We don't need to see those photos, because we need to remember the best of Aretha Franklin, because she is one of the greatest voices in music recording history. And you can name any female singer, black female singer that's a star that can really blow, that you name, will be under Aretha Franklin. You know, as in her 70s, at her 72nd birthday party, she was still able to hold a note. And that's amazing. And so we don't want we don't want her to suffer, but we want the truth to be out so some relief and some closure can be gained through the family. Because a lot of times in our families, the black families, we think that we are the only ones who have certain traumatic situations within the home, and we keep those events secret, and at the same time it eats away from the inside of a person. It eats away starting from the inside. A lot of people don't even realize that diabetes in a lot of cases comes from people. Well, let me turn it around. A lot of people who have diabetics are mean spirited people. Not everybody, but those a lot of blacks who are diabetics have a lot of vicious attitude problems, attitude adjustment problems, and I don't want to say mean spirited. I really don't like to use that term because we all have issues. But I'll say this: a lot of diabetics in the black community have a high level of hardcore arrogance. I'll put it that way. And if you can get rid of that and change your attitude, you know, it can help a great deal into coping with diabetes. And just think about it. Think about it the next time you see a relative or a friend that may be a diabetic, and check out their attitudes. And not everybody, it's just, you know, a good portion of our people. Nevertheless, Aretha Franklin was a great queen. And I really admired her when she stood up when Whitney Houston was murdered, and Aretha and Shaka Khan refused. When Shaka Khan and Whitney Houston, Shaka Khan and Aretha Franklin refused to accept that Whitney Houston died of a drug overdose. Aretha and Shaka Khan stated, along with Bobby Brown's sister Leola, that Whitney was murdered. And Aretha didn't. She was asked to sing at Whitney's homegoing service, and I don't believe that she showed up because she was so upset at Clive Davis for having the Grammys while Whitney was on the floor dead in the hotel room upstairs in the same exact building. And Clive Davis told Aretha that Whitney would wanted it that way. And Aretha jumped down Clive Davis's white, nasty, homosexual throat. And she did not show up, she did not sing or perform at Whitney's homegoing service. So she was a stand-up sister, you know, and for someone to have been so strong and who have been traumatized so viciously. And let me say this, Aretha, as a result of being pregnant and giving birth at 14, Aretha became highly promiscuous. Highly promiscuous. And she was always looking for that father figure in a man. And that's the wickedness of the disease. I guess they call it, you may want to call it Stockholm syndrome. I'm not positively sure that may fit this situation. But however, Aretha, stuck with her father after going through the traumatizing situation, of having sex with her father and being impregnated by her father. However, we should just remember the powerful, great things about Queen Aretha Franklin. She was the queen. She was the queen. Not Patti LaBelle, not Mariah Carey, not none of them. Not Jennifer Hudson, not none of them. Aretha laid the groundwork for all black female singers. And so, once again, like I said, Aretha could basically eulogize herself, because that's how powerful of a sister she is. With a voice that only could be given by the Creator and the ancestors. And so, as you take time and give her a couple of moments. And as we know, that devil we call cancer is a painful monster. Is a painful monster. And it takes a hell of a person to battle it without giving in. So we ask the ancestors to bless her, and if you want to shed some tears for Aretha, it's all good. That lets you know that you're human and that you feel for her, and that you're thankful that you were able to be here during her time to see the greatness and the queen of soul. And we ask the ancestors to embrace her, to take her in, because she put in the work, and our condolences go out to the family. And once again, we ask the ancestors, we ask the Creator, to let her enter the ancestral realm. Let her sit at the table of the greatest, with the greatest, with Sam, Otis, James, Mahalia, Michael, Pop, Left Eye, Martin, Malcolm, Marcus, Harriet, Francis. She rightfully is deserving of a spot. Ashe. Whatever greeting you want to use. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Lord. Assalamu alaikum. And as I close, Hotep, Black Power.